again to Cooking with Chef Brandon. Today we're making something that's very special to me, and every Thanksgiving it's really the only thing that my mother actually makes, and that's pumpkin pie. So today we're making my mother's famous pumpkin pie. One pie shell. Now you can make your own pie dough, but they make some really good frozen pie doughs that are really inexpensive, and then you don't have to worry about the hassle of rolling it out and making sure it's all set. And I use an unbaked pie shell. You can pre-bake them, but I think it run the risk of the outside getting too burnt or too dark. And I've always had this with an unbaked, and I've enjoyed it that way. So I'm using an unbaked pie shell. I'm using pumpkin puree. Now, you will find pumpkin pie filling. Don't use that. It's too sweet. It has just too much sugar. It's not the same, and then you have to adjust the whole recipe. Just pumpkin puree. For one pie, you need a 15-ounce can. You also need a 12-ounce can of evaporated milk. This is a mixture of sugars I have here. I have a half a cup of brown sugar and a quarter cup of white sugar. You could use dark brown sugar or golden light sugar, either one. You'll need 2 large eggs, and then for the spices, I like to use pumpkin pie spice. Now you can buy your cinnamon, your clove, your ginger, your allspice, your nutmeg. But then if you're not gonna use them, you're just gonna have spices that sit on your shelf all year. So I like to use pumpkin pie spice because we'll end up using this whole thing just through one season between making different desserts and coffee drinks and stuff like that. And it has everything you need ready to go inside here. I'll be using a standing mixer to mix everything. You can do it by hand, but the standing mixer really makes a nice smooth mixture. So we're gonna walk through this step by step. I'm gonna show you how to make it. Very simple. So first thing you'll need with your mixer is fit it with a paddle attachment. A paddle attachment is used for a creaming method of mixing, and also doesn't incorporate too much air into the dish, which then makes it a little bit too light. We kind of want something that's a lot thicker. So we're gonna attach that first. So the first thing that's gonna go in is gonna be our mixture of sugars. And that's our, again, a half a cup of brown and a quarter cup of white sugar. From there, we wanna use our puree. So we're gonna use this whole can, and I'll use a spatula to kind of just get all around to get this whole puree. Now there's a lot of different brands out there. Libby is a really popular one. This is a Sprouts brand organic. Any of them work good, as long as it's just straight 100% pure. So we're gonna start this mixture first. So I'm gonna start on low. And what we wanna do is we wanna get this nice and mixed and get all the sugar and the pumpkin puree blended together. As it starts mixing, you can gently turn the speed up a little bit more. Don't turn it up too high, otherwise you're gonna have pumpkin pie mix flying all over the place. So I just like to mix this just a little bit. So I'm gonna turn it back down to low, and I wanna put 1 egg at a time. So we're just gonna crack 1 egg at a time and let that mix before I add the next egg. We want that egg to completely incorporate into the mixture. We do that because when we start adding things like that have moisture, it's easy for this to separate, become lumpy, and not mix in fully. And we want to make sure the egg mixes in fully. The egg gives it a richness and also lightens it just a little bit. Okay, so once that you don't see that egg anymore, we'll go the next egg right inside. So see, I'll play with the speed a little bit. I'll start low to make sure we don't splatter, and I'll turn it up just a little bit. Now I'm gonna go back down to low, and I wanna slowly add this whole can without spilling of evaporated milk. And just keep slowly pouring it. and let that mix together. And what we're going to do is we're actually going to, I'm going to use my spatula before I add the pumpkin pie spice and stir this up. So I'm going to turn it off, I'm going to drop it, and I'm going to use my spatula that I had earlier, and I'm going to scrape everything off the sides and the bottom. Because what happens is sometimes things don't get mixed all the way. And we want this completely mixed in. So just moving everything off of the bottom. And then now we can go ahead and add our spice. So a lot of times what we see is we see these shakers on top, which are great. But I'm gonna go ahead and remove that top shaker because I wanna add a whole tablespoon. And I do it right over because even if a little bit extra goes in, it's okay. If you like a lot of spice, you can do more than 1 tablespoon. And you can see I can do a really, really big tablespoon because I like a lot of spice in my pumpkin pie. So we'll put that lid back on. And now we're going to turn this back on. So now we have everything mixed together. And so what I'm going to do is I'm going to drop this again. I'm going to remove our attachment. I'm going to take this straight over to the sink so I can put my attachment away. And then with that spatula, I'm gonna go all the way around to make sure there's no more spots of puree, sugar, or spice. Okay. We're gonna go ahead and pour this into our pie shell. Just nice and easy. It should go all the way to the top. So the whole thing is nice and smooth. And so I'm gonna bake this on a sheet pan inside the oven. That way, just in case there was any spillage, it goes onto the sheet pan, not into the oven. And we're gonna do this at 425 for 15 minutes. After that, I'm just gonna turn the dial and turn it down to 350 degrees, and we're gonna finish cooking it for 40 minutes. So make sure you set your timers, and that way we can check it and get this thing properly baked. I'm baking this in the top part of my oven. So if you want to do like the middle to the top, I don't bake on the bottom parts of my oven because some ovens it's too hot and you'll risk the bottom burning. So the middle to the top is a great place to bake these. So I'm gonna go ahead and put this in at my oven. It's been preheating already, and then we'll see what it looks like in about 55 minutes. So it's been 15 minutes at 425. And we turned it down to 350 and went for another 40 minutes. If it gets a little too dark, and maybe next time I might pull it out 3 or 4 minutes earlier, but it looks good. So we're gonna check. I have this really thin, small knife, and I'm gonna go just right down into the center and then right back up. And you see it should come out perfectly clean, just like that. That way we know it's completely cooked. So this I'm gonna set on my counter at least 2 hours minimum before I would even attempt to try and cut into it, but it's much better if you can let it sit for 4 to 6 hours and even in the fridge overnight. But if I'm gonna put it in the fridge, I'm gonna let it sit out for about 4 hours to cool down completely. So really good is to make some whipped cream, maybe have a scoop of vanilla ice cream. Once it's all cooled down, that goes really well right on top of that. So I think I'm gonna enjoy this later on. I hope you give it a shot. I hope you like it. Thank you very much for joining me with this today, and have a good day.